A very good afternoon to all of you. Since today morning, we had the privilege of hearing to many presenters who have actually touched upon different aspects of mental health in their presentations. And it was, I think, we were blessed to listen to His Holiness Radhanath Swamiji, with whose presence I at least felt that that divine silence descended upon the audience, and he also touched upon very important aspects in his keynote address, which were related to mental health. Dr. Mundra has kind of brought you out of the post-lunch slumber, and he has made you laugh and kind of get activated. But I know still it is a post-lunch slumber, so I need to kind of keep my presentation short, and I'll try to do that. The organizers have given me the opportunity to speak on the current mental health scenario in India, and I was allocated 12 minutes of time. I think it will be a gross injustice for me to speak about this huge topic in 12 minutes. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to kind of intertwine some kind of a personal story with what I'm going to present. 15 years ago, I completed my MBBS from GS Medical College here in Mumbai, and at that point of time, I had decided to join psychiatry. None of my family members had ever heard about psychiatry, nor I had known any psychiatrist. So when I took that decision, it was very difficult to convince my friends, my family members, and most of them said that Rahul has gone crazy. But I went ahead, I did my psychiatry. After 3 years, I announced to my family members that I'm going to follow the path in public mental health or community psychiatry. Again, practically no one had heard about it, and some who thought that I had some sense left in me, they kind of gave the verdict that Rahul is now fully mad, he is gone crazy, and how he is going to do anything in community mental health, or for that matter, public mental health. I don't know whether I was able to convince anyone at that point of time, most importantly my wife, whether this was a right decision to join that career or not. But I believe that it was necessary to work in the field of public mental health. In next 12 slides, I'm actually going to kind of say only those things which are relevant to provide that answer. Is it really relevant to work in the field of public mental health? Through next 12 slides, I'm going to kind of raise some questions, and through the work which our group has done, I'm going to kind of answer some of them. It is impossible for me to touch upon the aspects of mental health work going on in India, but I'm going to touch upon things which we have done in small part of the settings which we are working in. So first of all, we need to kind of answer this question, why mental health? Why should we bother about mental disorders? If at all we bother about them, what can we do about it? And if we know these solutions, is it possible to scale these solutions so that it goes, reaches maximum number of people? So let's start with this, why mental health? And it's very curious, you introduced in the beginning you said that 1 in every 4 people suffers from mental disorders. Now that's a very curious statistics. Actually, we tried to kind of find out where that was actually written, in which WHO report it was written. It's difficult to find. It's not a gross underestimate or overestimate, but it's difficult to find that source. So it's important that we need to kind of know the psychiatric epidemiology or lay of the land. This is a very recent paper published some 6 months ago from our group in the Lancet, and this is about the burden of disease. Burden of disease is measured in DALYs, which is disability adjusted life years. I'll not go into the details of it, but the paper describes very beautifully based on the data available in 2013. And it talks about the contribution of mental, neurological, and substance use disorders, and the DALYs contributed by them. So the figures over here tell us that 50% of the disease burden in India is contributed by non-communicable diseases. And out of the total burden, it's a 6% burden which is contributed by mental, neurological, and substance use disorders. Quantitatively, it comes to 31 million DALYs, and this is just by one single disorder, which is depression. So if you take depression and anxiety disorder, it constitutes half of the burden of disease contributed by mental neurological and substance use disorders. So when we talk about mental disorders, I think primarily we should be talking about depression, anxiety and alcohol use disorders, because they more or less contribute to very close to 2/3 of the burden. It's also important to talk about psychosis because it's a condition which is very disabling, and it's a human rights issue that we make a treatment available for them. Now the next question is, okay, we know about the burden of disease, but do we know that how this burden is distributed? This is a second paper in the same series published in the Lancet, which talks about what is the distribution of this burden. And it's not surprising for us working in the field of psychiatric epidemiology, but for most of the people, it's quite a myth buster. A myth buster in the sense that mental disorders do not affect the affluent people. It's basically the people who are less educated, people with low socioeconomic status, especially in India, women who are married. These are the things which are associated with mental disorders. And what we found was that the predictors for mental disorders in India are quite different than what we find in the West. So Dr. Sankhe mentioned in the morning that we need a paradigm shift. Dr. Bhavaskar's work has underlined the need for paradigm shift. And in this paper, we have also tried to kind of address this whole thing about a Eurocentric approach to psychiatric epidemiology or a Eurocentric approach to interventions. I think we need to rethink about that whole paradigm and look at what are the problems in India and how are they distributed. Coming on to the next issue in psychiatric epidemiology, we know that there is burden. We know that this burden is differentially distributed. That means some people are more affected than others. But what about access to care? What about the fact that how many of them are able to access care? And again, the statistics here is very dismal. This paper, again from Lancet, talks about the coverage or the treatment gap. Again, due to paucity of time, I'll not go into the details of this, but it says that very few people receive treatment. And finally, this very recent survey from the National Mental Health Survey conducted by NIMHANS just a couple of months ago, it actually puts those figures, and it's actually quite a shameful thing for us to know that almost 75 to 85% of the people suffering with mental disorders do not have any access to care. This is quite a big violation, not just in India, but this is the story practically across the globe. So this brings me to the next part of my presentation, which is, okay, we now know that what is the burden of the disease, but do we know that what we need to do for it? Because otherwise, there's a whole therapeutic nihilism going around, especially with non-psychiatrists in the medical field. They think that, okay, fine, there are psychiatric disorders, but do you have any solutions? The good part is that the solutions at the population level have been synthesized by WHO in their MHGAP program. MHGAP stands for Mental Health Gap Action Program, and this intervention guide tries to synthesize all that which is available currently using a lot of systematic reviews. And the second figure which you see is from the Disease Control Priorities Network, where again a Lancet publication from last year that also brings together all the interventions available. So for key or important mental disorders, there are interventions which are available which can be delivered. Now I'm going to share what has happened very recently, just 2 weeks ago. This was published again in Lancet. Practically every slide you see over here is a Lancet publication from our group, which also emphasizes the fact that a lot of research is happening in this part of India. Now this is an intervention which is for depression. This is called as Healthy Activity Program. It is based on certain principles of cognitive behavior therapy, and what the trial has shown that the intervention is effective and it can be delivered by lay counselors, lay health workers in a rural setting in Goa. A similar intervention is available for alcohol. So this is counseling for alcohol problems, or CAP as an intervention, which is based on motivational interviewing. The reason why I have kind of shown these two things is because these are the trials which have been done in India with a lot of hard work going on for last 5 years, and the interventions have been contextualized for Indian setting. So this is not just copy-paste work. We have taken interventions from outside and have just delivered over here, but we have contextualized the interventions and we have delivered in a setting which is which again, India is a heterogeneous country, so things which apply in one setting not necessarily are applicable for other. I'll skip in interest of time. This is intervention for schizophrenia. So there is now a lot of evidence base from India which supports the fact that there are interventions available for mental health. Now the third important question is, how do we kind of take it to people? How we scale it up? Because at the end of the day, that's the whole point. I mean, you could prove in a pilot setting or in a trial setting or in an experiment that something works, but how you take it to scale? Now this is where the systems approach or health systems approach comes in, and to explain in very simple words, I would say that what Ubuntu, a concept in African tradition, what Ubuntu says, I am what I am because of what we all are. Similarly, in our work, we have used this concept and we have said that intervention is intervention or effective intervention because of multiple things around it. And that's the systems thinking in nutshell. So we have used this systems thinking and a team approach or a collaborative care approach to take things to scale. This is demonstrated in our work in Vidarbha. So in Vidarbha Stress and Health Program, again, a paper published in the Lancet Psychiatry just 3 days ago, we found that the grassroots community-based program was led by community health workers and lay counselors in collaboration with specialists, was able to increase the access to care by 6-fold. So from 5% people accessing care, it was almost 30% people accessing care in a span of 18 months. Similarly, our work in project called PRIME, so PRIME stands for Program for Improving Mental Health Care. This is something which we are doing in Madhya Pradesh. We have kind of found out multiple strategies related to implementation science or health systems which help us to kind of take programs to scale. Programs to scale meaning it's not just 200 or 300 people which are getting impacted by the program, but actually it goes at the statewide level. So what happened in Madhya Pradesh was that looking at our model which we developed in PRIME, which I didn't explain again because my time is running short, the government of Madhya Pradesh was a collaborator in our work, and they said that we want to know more about this because we have shown this to be effective in one district. And when we explained them that this can be taken up to the scale, they were very happy and they agreed. And now in Madhya Pradesh, this is probably the first state in India where all 51 districts, district hospitals in government setting, in public health setting, have a Man Kaksh. A Man Kaksh is a room where people are screened for depression, anxiety disorders, alcohol disorders and other key priority disorders, and a very basic level psychoeducation is given to them, and the first level psychopharmacology is also done. If referral is required, then psychiatrist from district mental health program comes into the picture. So this program is called SOHAM. SOHAM stands for Scaling Up Opportunities for Healthy and Active Minds, and we are trying to take this, the effort has been to take it to the scale. Let me remind you, Madhya Pradesh is a state which has area bigger than United Kingdom, and it has a population bigger than United Kingdom also. In a very short span of around 1.5 years, we were able to establish Man Kaksh in all 51 districts in the state. We were able to train minimum 1 medical officer and 2 nurses from all the 51 districts. Specialists in most of the district hospitals were sensitized about mental health disorders, and there were multiple other things related to financing and human resource allocation, which we were able to kind of bring into the program. This brings to the end of my presentation. I don't think I've done justice to the thing, but at least if I have been able to convince some of you in the audience that mental health is a real problem. A lot of psychiatric epidemiology related work exists, but a lot needs to be done. Solutions are there, evidence-based solutions are available in India, but again, a further lot of work is required in that, and it's possible to scale up these interventions using systems approach. And things which we have used in implementation science. If I've been able to convince some of you to take this up as a career, I think that would serve the purpose of this particular presentation. Finally, I would like to acknowledge people who have funded this work, as well as individual collaborators and our formal patients and everyone else. And lastly, I think it's a great privilege to share a day with Dr. Bavaskar, whose work I have followed since last 2 decades as an Ekalavya, and he has been a phenomenal inspiration for all budding researchers in country. Thank you so much.